And Rafa would like to ask, can metta be applied to counteract fear?
Oh, definitely. It's one of the benefits, the results of practicing metta is that one becomes fearless when it's perfected, when it's practiced to the highest level. But on the pathway to that, then it will help to deal with fearful situations, fearful people, anything you're afraid of. Developing metta brings you confidence and the right attitude to face that fear. You know, sometimes fear, or always fear, is coming from ignorance, avijja. And when you bring up metta first to deal with fear, you're bringing up the right quality to investigate it and get to know it. You know, when you often find things that you're afraid of, situations, people, when you get to know them, they're not so fearful. You know, the fear comes up immediately. It's like a block from you knowing that person, that situation, and the fear is what takes over your mind, so you're stuck in that unless you find a way out. And turning to metta at that time will help to calm the mind, so you can look back at the fear and know it better and see through it maybe. You know, we're seeing, if it's a person, you know, with metta you're developing the right attitude to see the good in that person, keep your mind from falling into fear even though they're kind of aggressive. Doesn't mean to say you let them hurt you or whatever. You have to act appropriately when you're in a fearful situation, but helps you understand how to see fear as a state of mind that is suffering. As you bring up the metta, you can get to know fear, see the suffering of it, and look for a way to let it go. Or maybe just going to metta changes the way the mind thinks. So, like, often when we're afraid, fear is very close to aversion, isn't it? Anger, ill will, aversion. And that often comes from a perception we've put onto ourselves, a situation, a person. So when you bring up the metta, it changes that perception, takes that away, so then the fear often subsides. It doesn't mean to say, you know, you can just do risky things because you have metta. You still have to use wisdom and make wise judgments in your daily life. But the metta helps you to deal with the fear, see through it, let it go. So the Buddha said, one who develops metta, they sleep without fear. They don't have to fear the danger of weapons, because metta has its own good energy. And even if you were to meet somebody with weapons, you know, who may even hurt you, but you're dying. If it was to happen, you would die with a mind of metta. You don't have to fear. Where you be reborn, you'll be reborn in a good place. What we should be fearing is anger. Anger is destructive. Fear leads to anger, and they kind of go hand in hand, and it leads to often destructive behavior. It's suffering. Metta goes in the other direction. So, example, there's a doctor we know who, as you know, doctors often they get pressured by patients who want various kind of prescription drugs. Particularly people who are drug addicts become very aggressive when they don't get the prescription they want. And they're always, you know, verbally abusing doctors, pressuring them to get what they want. There's a doctor I knew who was getting pressured by a patient who he wouldn't give the drugs the patient wanted because, you know, the doctor didn't have to prescribe them and didn't see it necessary. So he was getting phone calls, abusive, threatening phone calls. The person would come into the clinic, abuse them. In the end, the person was threatening to kill the doctor, so the police were called. The doctor himself had metta, so he didn't call the police, but somebody else called the police on his behalf. And the police came, and said, well, what are we going to do about this? And the doctor said, oh, don't worry, just leave it, because he had metta for the person, and he understood this person is suffering. He wasn't giving in to his fear or anger. He was just responding with metta. And he said, don't worry, I'll get through it. And the police said, but aren't you afraid? Aren't you afraid this person might kill you? And the doctor, who was a good Buddhist, said, I'm not afraid of death, I'm afraid of birth. Because the more you practice, you realize, the things we have to be really afraid of are our kilesas that lead to more birth, because birth is followed by aging, sickness and death. When you've developed metta to a certain degree, you can think like this. You can realize, the real problem is my own anger, my own attachment, not external threats, problems out there. It's internal. So the police, in this situation, the police were confused. They'd never met somebody who had said that before, so they were a bit unsure how to deal with the comment. But it is a very monk-like comment. Monks are like this. You go into the forest, or you're in situations sometimes where you do have fear arise, but then you turn to metta to calm your mind and see through it, and you realize, the fear is the problem, not the external thing that you're afraid of, the person, the being. Or sometimes we just create fear out of nothing, don't we? We're just afraid of the dark or some perceived threat that's not actually there. But the problem is the fear, not the metta, and developing metta helps you not attach and identify with the fear.
There are a few questions here on the chat box. The first one, it's on how does one practice, or how does one do the 32 body parts meditation, Uncle?
The 32 body parts, was that?
That's right.
Well, you've got the chanting book, so that's where you get the 32 parts, the actual words. A good way to begin, there are different ways you can approach this, there's not just one way, but a good way, if you're new to it, is recite them. Learn them off by heart and recite them, whether it's in Pali or English is fine. So hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, flesh in your bones, and so on. Learn the parts, and then as a meditation, start to recite them. So you're sitting there, or walking meditation, focus in your mind one part at a time. So with hair of the head, you recite hair of the head, and you actually put your attention up there. So you send your mind's attention up to the top of your head, where the hair is. If you're sitting meditation, you can also visualize it. And the first aim is just to bring up mindfulness with that body part. So obviously with 32 parts, there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of meditation to do with 32 parts. That can take hours, so you may pick sections. So you take the first 5 parts, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin. Maybe just work on that first. Later you move on to another 5 body parts, another day or another time. And they say when we meditate, we all experience the monkey mind, the mind that just runs around all over the place thinking many things. So one way to give this monkey mind work is to give it 32 parts to think about. So rather than thinking about all the other things in life, during this meditation you are running through the 32 parts, or maybe just 5 parts to start with. You're visualizing it, you're reciting the name, you're putting your attention on that part of the body, and you're giving your mind work to do. And it's a form of work, isn't it? And your monkey mind runs away, you bring it back until you can stay and visualize and be with that one body part. And then you go on to the next body part, and the next, and the next. And you can do this for a long time, many sessions. And during that process, many sessions, becoming familiar with these 32 parts of the body, where they are in your body, what they look like, and reciting the name and learning to give the monkey mind, a task so it's not too distracted. After a while, what you often find is that one particular part holds your attention better than others. So it could be a particular bone in the body, for example. It could be the skin, it could be the flesh, but it could be a bone. So it could be the skull or the rib cage or an arm bone or a finger bone. And many meditators have found this. They found this one part, after a while of experimenting with the other 32 parts, after a while one part becomes prominent. They may even have an image that they can find they hold very easily, can bring it up at will. They know that image, the mind's happy to sit with it, contemplate it, and then after a while that image is very clear and very strong, and the mind becomes very still and becomes firm in samadhi with that image. One can even develop it by contemplating impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self, 3 characteristics. One can contemplate that in that image, the impermanence of that body part, seeing it change with aging, with death. And, imagine like today we have a dead deer in the monastery which we're using as a contemplation on a corpse. So went over and look at this dead deer and how it's decomposing over the days. And you in your mind's eye you can do the same. You might not have a corpse to look at, but you can create one, or either one single part or all 32 parts. You can contemplate them in a corpse and see how they degenerate. So we're watching this deer corpse degenerate, how the hair is dropping off, the skin is kind of separating, bits of the meat is being eaten by animals, and there's flies laying eggs. It's a repulsive, unattractive kind of meditation, but it's very useful. And we've done this before with other corpses in the forest, kangaroos, deer, and eventually what you get left with is just earth. That corpse gets eaten, but whatever's left gradually disintegrates and blends with the earth. And you can do the same in your mind's eye with this meditation. You're reducing this human body, which we normally take as a solid thing and even quite infatuated with, fascinated with, delight in. We like it, we lust after it, we're attached to it, our body, other people's bodies. Now you're breaking it down and seeing ultimately it's just 4 elements. Right, we were poking the deer today, and the deer is cold, so the heat element is gone. It's drying out, so that you can see the water element is going. The main element that's left is the solid part. The air is gone; it's not breathing. All that's left is the solid part, and that is gradually breaking down into the earth. Every single corpse in the world of any kind of human, animal, does the same. It's not self in that way. So your ultimate, the final destination of this body contemplation meditation is to see the impermanence, unsatisfactory, and ultimately the lack of self in this body. But start with reciting and focusing on each individual part. That's how you begin.
There are a couple of questions regarding metta meditation. Let me summarize in 4 parts, and maybe Lumpur could take it up together. The first question, it's around metta is often mentioned together with karuna. How can one distinguish between these 2 qualities when we are developing them internally? That's the first question. Second question around metta meditation is, can metta meditation lead to jhanas? Right? The third would be, when we do metta meditation and we develop and we transfer that, say, to our departed loved ones, where does metta actually reside? Is it in the mind or in the heart as well?
What was the first question again?
The first question is about the 2 qualities So karuna and metta.
Yeah, they really come out, one comes out of the other. So this is why we emphasize developing metta to start with. The basic attitude of goodwill to oneself, to others. As one is developing that, both in meditation or in daily life, as an attitude in daily life, one can't help but notice the suffering. One's own suffering is exposed or revealed by developing metta. The suffering of others is revealed or exposed by developing metta. So it naturally leads on to the development of karuna, because karuna is the wish for oneself to be free from suffering and not to fall into further suffering, and the wish for others to be free from suffering, not to fall into further suffering. So it quite naturally leads on. All these Brahmaviharas, Metta, Karuna, Mudita and Upekkha, they all can lead to jhana. They're all meditation objects. Only the Upekkha will lead to fourth jhana. Metta will lead to first jhana. But that's not a reason not to practice it. As one's developing the Brahmaviharas, you may find, a bit like with that last question about the body, there may be one of those Brahmaviharas which really you resonate with. So it may be you begin with metta, but then you find karuna actually takes over, and it's the wish to be free from suffering when you notice your own suffering, or the wish for others to be free from suffering, may become the more prominent object of mind, depending on your character. Or it may be sometimes metta is the appropriate thing, and that's what you're focusing on. Other times karuna is the appropriate thing, because we meet people in different situations. And similarly with mudita, we meet people who are happy, successful. So particularly, spiritual practitioners, like when you go and see if there's a teacher that you know, and you go and see them on their birthday, and you may feel this person is not suffering at all. I can't spread metta or karuna to them because they don't need it. So then what do? You practice mudita. May you continue to be enlightened and happy and free from suffering, and you wish for them to continue. Or in a more short-term, simple way, it may be just somebody you know, they achieve some success in their life and you wish them well. As a thought, the opposite and the antidote to jealousy and competitiveness, you just wish them well. Or as a meditation, you focus on that, wishing them well. May they continue to maintain the success, the happiness that they've achieved as an object of meditation. So mudita is the one that people talk about least. It's almost like the kind of forgotten Brahmavihara. It's interesting, Ajahn Chah, on one of his medallions, he never made medallions, but one group of people made a medallion for him to bless. It was the only one that was done. And for the Brahmaviharas, they were written down on it, Metta, Mudita, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upekkha, but he actually had Mudita put first. So it's Mudita first. I don't really know the origin of that, but from my understanding it was just emphasizing the fact that we often forget to have joy at the success of others, because everyone has success in their lives. But it all comes from a starting point of metta. Metta leads on to karuna, to mudita, to upekkha, and they really work together. But as meditation objects, well, they do separate, and they all lead to jhana, but only upekkha leads to fourth jhana.
Okay, Longpo. Bhavani, do you still want to ask a question to person? Could you unmute yourself, please?
Namaste, Ajahn. Am I audible? Yeah, I'm just getting confused. What is meant by thinking, contemplation, correction, and reflection?
Can you say that again a bit slower, clearer?
What is meant by thinking, contemplation, recollection, and reflection.
Or you want to know the difference between these words and what they mean?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure they necessarily mean different things. It depends on the person using the words. Reflection, discernment, contemplation. Quite often they're referring to much the same thing. Initially in our practice, we develop what we call wise reflection, yoniso manasikara. We hear the Dhamma and we reflect on it, meaning we think about it, develop understanding of things, directing our mind to give wise attention to different issues like how we use material things, how we relate to other people, to understand more our own mind and whether our mind is in a wholesome state or an unwholesome state. We pay wise attention to ourselves, what we're doing and how we interact with the world. Sometimes I use the word reflection, wise reflection, sometimes contemplation, sometimes discernment, but the official word is yoniso manasikara, wisely directing attention to whatever it is you're involved with. We use that in meditation, but in daily life as well. Discernment, I think, often is a translation for panya, and in the deepest level, panya means seeing, knowing the Four Noble Truths, or vipassana, insight, insight into the three characteristics of existence, knowing them in phenomena, in your experience during time when your mind is in samadhi and is calm, beyond the five hindrances. We can contemplate very well and see very clearly impermanence in body, in mind, in mental formations. We can see unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. We can see and know selfless nature of phenomena and see the conditioned nature of phenomena, how suffering arises, how it ceases. You might call that discernment. But it really depends on the individual person talking. You could just use the word panya and would cover it, but often people don't understand the word panya, so we use words like contemplation, wise reflection. So one thing is, maybe just get used to the teachers that you listen to, how they use these words. That will help a bit.
Sadhu Lampa. Two more questions. I think Lampa just now earlier on, you did not talk about where does metta reside? Is it only in the mind or in the heart as well?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I missed that one. Yeah, metta is an object, it's a mental formation, it's a sankhara, but the way I found it practiced from teachers and myself is that it definitely seems to resonate and come from the heart area. When developed as an object of samadhi and the five hindrances disappear, then the mind merges with that object, and so even the word metta or any other phrase you've been reciting disappears. All you're left is you might say a sensation or a feeling that is the nimitta of that samadhi. If it's in practice in a more broader way, it still seems to come from the citta, which is here, isn't it? But it doesn't mean to say you can't think it as well. We think metta, meaning we think about helping others, having goodwill for others, how to abandon our anger, how to develop metta. So we use thought formations as well. It's a positive emotion. And really the citta doesn't reside anywhere if you don't want it to. So, you can spread metta, and as an energy it can flow anywhere around your body. So it has a very healing effect on physical ailments. And then you can direct your metta to another person. So then where is it? Is your citta here or there? This is for you to find out through your practice, isn't it? But if you ever feel metta coming from a teacher who has a strong metta, has samadhi, has jhana, then it seems to be like a wave of energy coming your way from that person. So where is their jitta? Well, their jitta is obviously coming your way for a while, and then I guess it returns to them because it will be linked to their body. So, for example, Lumpur Somchai Wat Khao Su Kim, who was a disciple of Ajahn Man with a very, very powerful mind. He's passed away now, but when my brother and his wife were on honeymoon, they came to Thailand, and my wedding gift to them was to take them to see as many enlightened teachers as I could, because I thought that's the best gift you can give to someone. So I took them to see different teachers, and the one that we really were impressed with was Lumpur Somchai, who actually said very little, but he chanted a lot. And as he was chanting for them, this amazing wave of metta came over. And perhaps because I'm a more experienced meditator, I knew what he was doing and what was going on. But it's a very nice energy that helps you to feel better in that moment. So this is why people often they go and see teachers, and all their troubles seem to go away, and all their stress is gone. The metta envelops them coming from that teacher. And they felt it, and they weren't meditators, and they weren't they didn't understand a lot about Buddhism, but they said, wow, you could really feel his goodwill, his metta. So, it starts here, your heart, and if you're spreading it, it's going out to the world, as we were doing earlier, in all directions. And it just depends how much you practiced it and how strong it is, I guess, and whether you have that intention to spread metta or not.
Okay. So this other question is, what does it mean if a person keeps seeing or hearing ghosts? What should the person do in such a situation, especially when one does not have a strong or good metta?
What was the first part? Just say it slowly.
What does it mean if a person keeps seeing or hearing ghosts?
Oh, what does it mean? Well, if your mind is fairly calm, so you're not just lost in your imagination, well, maybe you are seeing some kind of vijnana consciousness. Maybe that place that you are has consciousnesses associated with it, and you're seeing them or sensitive to them. Some people are. What should you do? Well, spreading metta is a good thing to do, isn't it? Because if you're experiencing any kind of ghost, usually that ghost is in a state of suffering. And perhaps they sense that you're somebody who can sense them, and so they're expressing their suffering just as you might meet somebody, your friend comes along, a human person, a real person comes along and says, oh, I'm so stressed today. What would you do? Or you say, oh, sit down, have a cup of tea, have a chat, wish them well, do something to display goodwill, friendliness to them. You might do that. Or in the same way as if you keep seeing ghosts, well, keep having metta for them. Wish them well, may you be happy. You can even say, don't bother me anymore. You've got your metta now, don't come back and bother me. You could do that, and many people do that, and it works. Because you're telling them, the ghost, you're bothering me. I don't want to see you. Okay, so off they go. If you don't say it and you don't think it, then maybe they'll keep coming back for more and annoying you. So have metta, goodwill, and tell them, I wish you well, may you get a good rebirth, and finish with the problem.
Sadhu Lampa, there's a last question here, but it's not related to metta, it's related to karma. So this question is, as this person is asking, it is the volition, which is cetana, that I call karma. For having willed, one acts by body, speech, and mind. So the question is, must the elements of cetana and actions be present as conditions for karmic consequence? How would mental volition without body and speech actions be the cause of karmic consequence? Would Lompa want to comment about it now or the next session?
Was that, how can metta be karma? Was it? Without body and speech?
It is not a metta question, it's a karma question.
Or karma question.
Yeah, this person is asking about how would mental volition, which is the body and speech action itself, be the cause of karmic consequence?
Oh, mental volition.
Yes.
Well, one moment of mental volition is conditioning another moment. So you may not say or do anything, you're just quietly thinking to yourself, I hate that guy. And that's quite likely to bring up a similar thought onwards from that. So, the more you invest power and self into that thought, the more likely it's to come up, reinforce itself, repeat itself. Because every thought, every mental volition leaves an impression on the mind, even if it's not said or acted on. Of course, it's not a very strong one. If it's just mental, it's not very strong yet. But the danger is if it's left unaddressed, if it was, say, hatred or anger, well, gradually it might build up so much momentum as a mental conditioning factor that eventually you say or do something destructive. And even in itself, it is destructive, isn't it? It ruins your state of mind if you hold on to a mental volition of anger. In the same way, goodwill, if you have a mental volition of goodwill, that's a very strong conditioning force to have another mental volition of goodwill as a resultant karma of the first one. It brings a pleasant feeling with it. We like that. We see the benefit of that, so we keep doing it. So even on the mental level, you're making karma and receiving the fruits of karma all the time. And as it becomes stronger, a more powerful conditioning process, well, it may come out in your speech, your actions. And even on the physical level, your state of mind will tend to be reflected just in the way you look. Physiology is affected by our state of mind. So, stress, as we know, affects the body without you actually saying or doing anything. Your state of mind, the stressful state of mind, affects your health, your immune system, your body. They've done a lot of research on that. If you're stressed and you're a mother pregnant with a baby, your stress is also affecting your baby. All the research seems to prove that now. In the same way, if you're developing metta as a mental condition, a mental volition, it affects you in a positive way. It can have a healing effect on your body. It can boost your immune system. Your baby, if you're pregnant, will feel better for that metta you're developing, and it's just on a mental level. So our mental volitions are very important, and that's why we have to practice mindfulness and wise reflection to get to know them and understand what is wholesome, beneficial, and what is unwholesome, negative and destructive.
I think that's all for this evening, all the questions for this evening. I have to take leave and pay respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha.
Okay, well, very nice talking to you all. I wish you all well in your practice, and we'll finish by paying respects to the Triple Gem.